Hey friends, and welcome back to my channel. I am Brianka Johnson Kirkman, and I am a strategic brand and business consultant. I've spent the last decade helping women in corporate, business owners, students, and staff, executive leaders leverage their skills and their expertise, their unique experiences to make more money, serve more people, and ultimately just live more fulfilling lives. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can build a simple sales funnel in your consulting business. And the reason that this is important is because as a consultant, you really want your systems to be working for you behind the scenes. So that way, as new clients come into your funnel or as new leads come into your funnel, you are able to convert them, you're able to onboard them, you're able to serve them well and let them know about your business, your offerings, without them having to wait for you to reply to an email or pick up the phone. You want them to be able to get that information 24/7. And so a simple sales funnel allows you the ability to do that. Before we jump in, I just want to make sure that you go ahead and download the private pivot plan. It is going to give you a step-by-step guide to think about what skills, what transferable skills you already have, and how you can leverage them to potentially pivot into consulting. So you can download that at my website, briankajohnson.com/pivot, and you will be able to access that immediately. So, plus, if you stay until the end, you will be entered to win a free VIP ticket to my upcoming 3-day leverage challenge. This ticket is worth $147, but if you stay until the end, you will actually be able to get this ticket for free. So let's get into it. We're going to break down a simple sales funnel for consultants, from getting your first contract, or from getting clients to know about you, to know what it is that you offer, to getting your first contract, the exact steps that I use to land consultant clients. So the very first thing that you want to do is you want to increase the awareness of your offer. This is one of the first mistakes that I see a lot of my clients make before working with me. They spend a lot of time in the back end of their business creating consultant offers, like perfecting the systems, like doing all these things that they think are going to actually translate into the client, but it doesn't. When you think about the back end, right, the back end is normally what you're doing to serve the client. So you want to make sure that you have a strategy for the front end of your business. Now, this can look like content, this can look like running ads, this can look like attending conferences or networking events, pitching, being a sponsor for events where your ideal clients are. It can look like a whole host of things. But basically, what you want to make sure that you have is you want to make sure that you have a strategy in place in your business to continue to get your business in front of more of the decision makers who are going to hire you. As an example, for one arm of my consulting business, we work with directors of federally funded programs that serve underprivileged and marginalized students. So a big part of my job is to make sure that these directors and these decision makers see, like, not only that we have an offer that serves their students, but the impact of that offer. We want them to know that, you know, the number of students that we've served, what kind of results we've been able to deliver, how the students and how the other administrators that we've worked with, how they feel about our offerings. So we sponsor programs where those administrators, we sponsor conferences and events where those administrators might be. I often will sign up to speak at conferences or in events where those administrators might be. And the goal is to get them into my ecosystem, right? So when I'm at these conferences or I'm at these speaking events, a lot of times I might hand them my business card. I might, send them to a one-sheeter that I created that basically breaks down why personal branding is important for students. I might ask them to join my email list, or I might set up a quick call just for the two of us to get to know each other. So that is how I'm increasing the awareness. I'm basically going where they are and I'm saying, like, hey, I'm using my expertise. I'm using the information that I have to open their eyes to a need that they might have where it concerns their students and elevating their career in the digital age. And typically when they see me and I do this presentation, it kind of like opens their eyes to say, dang, this could be useful, this could be beneficial for my students. How can I work with you? And then that's how I'm leveraging awareness to move them into the sales funnel. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that you have a strategy in place in your business to get in front of the decision makers that you want to work with. That also means that you need to understand who those decision makers are. Who are the people who have the authority and the budget to hire or even the influence to hire you, to bring you in. You want to know what that is. A lot of people skip this step and they think that they can just create content and they will attract, the decision makers if they use the right hashtags or if they post enough content or things like that. I don't really believe in that approach. I think that you want to be more strategic and more laser focused than just hoping that people are going to kind of pop up and magnetize to you. I think that that's a really long-winded way of, facilitating a strategy when there is an opportunity for you to be more laser focused and more intentional about getting in front of the people who can best hire you or influence decision makers to hire you. So you want to seek out who those people are. Are they already in your network? Are they people that you've worked with in the past? Are they people who have hired you or employed you in the past? You want to make sure that you know who it is already in your circle of influence that you could connect with to potentially help you land your first client and maybe even get that funnel started. Now, one thing I will say about awareness is that what I have seen is that it's much easier to build momentum in your consulting business when you have really intentionally invested in awareness. And the reason that this is because let's say you have intentionally, really focused on creating an audience of decision makers, whether it's on your LinkedIn account or it's on your email newsletter, wherever that might be, right? And then you start working with your contracts, you start delivering the value, you start delivering the transformation that you've promised, and now you're sharing what the impact of that work has been. Well, you're going to be sharing it in front of a collection of decision makers that you've already gathered. So now instead of you having to really focus on increasing your awareness and delivering, when you have spent time already gathering that audience of people, they're going to see what you're doing as you're sharing your work and sharing your impact. So you want to make sure that as you are working with your consultant clients, as you're delivering your service, that you are also documenting that process, because that is also going to be one of the ways that you are going to increase your awareness of your business as well. This could be through case studies, this could be through testimonials, this could be through referrals, whatever that looks like for you. But you want to make sure that you have a system, not just to pull those people into your ecosystem, but then to also remind them of the work that you're doing and the impact that you're having. So that way those decision makers can kind of keep you top of mind. So that's going to be the first thing. You want to make sure that you build a list of the right prospects, the right decision makers, people who have the authority, the money, and or the influence to hire you. And you want to make sure that you have a system for continuously getting in front of them, continually growing that list and allowing them to see the work that you're doing. The next thing that you want to do is you want to have a system in place to kind of get these people who are your right prospects, the people that you want to work with, to kind of raise their hand or signal to you that they are interested in the kind of service that you provide. So as an example, like I said, in my business, one of the things that we do is we offer workshop trainings to federally funded programs who primarily target underprivileged and marginalized communities of students. So one of the things that we do is, one of the ways that we get them to raise their hand in my business is we look for people who are attending the kind of conferences that target professionals who serve programs like the ones that we serve, or who serve students in any capacity. So that would be number one. But number two, what we also do is when we partner with organizations or we sponsor organizations, our goal is to get them to give us their name and email address to subscribe and download our one sheeter. And our one sheeter talks specifically to them. So we have a one sheeter in my business that literally talks about the impact of personal branding on student careers in the digital era. And the reason that this is important is because that's what my workshop series is about. It talks about how the old ways of getting jobs and elevating your career, just like updating your resume, updating your cover letter, like those don't really work, right? Because things have changed, technology has advanced. So now what we're seeing is that if we want our students to elevate in their career, we have to have more strategic ways of highlighting their skills and their expertise. So I created a one-sheeter that basically speaks to this, and it provides them with data and insights on why this is important. So when I'm sponsoring events or I'm going to conferences, I'm doing workshops or things like that, I am sending that audience of people to that one-sheeter. I want them to download that one-sheeter. I want them to give me their name and email address. And then on the back end of that, there is a sequence that basically encourages them to book a consultation call with me. So then on that call, I'm going to bridge the gap between, here is your program, here is how you work with students, here is a need that I'm seeing based on data and based on trends in, the workplace and in hiring, et cetera. Here's how I can help you and your students fill that gap. This is what that could look like. This is what this workshop series is. Here are programs that we've delivered it to. Here are some of our impacts and success rates, et cetera. Is this something that you would be interested in? And we get to have that conversation on the call. So if you reflect back on the funnel, basically what we're doing is we're creating a pool of the people that we want to talk to. We're sending them somewhere to basically signal that they would be interested in what it is that we have to offer as consultants. And this could look very different for you, right? If you are an HR consultant, this could look like, I actually just wrote an email today and I talked about a trend that I see happening in corporate right now, which is a thing called, I'm blanking. It's called quiet, blanking. Anyway, basically it's a trend where we see like women in corporate, people in corporate, basically they're doing good at their job. They're leading the projects. They're leading the initiatives. They're doing all the things. But on the inside, quietly breaking. On the inside, they are quietly cracking. On the inside, they are suffocating, right? They're not happy in their jobs. They're not, they're really struggling with what their role is in corporate and what it is that they should be doing. And so because of that, right, I'm able to bridge the gap between this is why you might be having these struggles in your corporate career. And like, here are opportunities that could look like. So for you as an HR consultant, you might address quiet cracking in your content, speaking to HR business managers, speaking to HR partners and things like that, and basically getting them to see that, hey, this is something that your employees might be struggling with. But as an HR consultant, what I can do is I can help you come in and increase employee engagement or increase, happiness in the workplace and mental health in the workplace through this specific framework that I have as a consultant. Thank you, Dom. Silent quitting. That's actually a little different than quiet cracking. Basically, silent quitting is when, they are removing themselves from the job or removing themselves from the workplace. They're doing a good job. You think they're doing a good job, and then they wake up and they quit. Silent cracking is more like they're still staying there. They're just not showing up to the best of their ability as they may have been. So as an HR consultant, if that's, in a field that you're interested in, that is something that you can leverage. You can leverage what is happening in the workplace. You can leverage what employees are struggling with now to kind of position your offer and your resources as a solution. So you just want to think about that. There are all these kind of different pathways that you could take. You could do an assessment if you're an education consultant, right? Like what are some gaps that you're seeing with students that your framework as an educational consultant could help to close? What are some strategies that you have that could help to retain Black educators or retain new educators in your district? How could you help districts, superintendents, principals understand the value of that. So you want to make sure that whatever lead magnet you have, whether it's a one-sheeter or it's an assessment or it's whatever that's going to look like, right? You want to make sure that it speaks to the problem that your perfect client, your ideal prospect is having, or something that they may be struggling with. So that may require that you spend time talking to them, that you do a little market research, that you are really involved with the needs of your perfect client and your prospect. So that way you can make sure that the resources that you create, the lead magnet that you create, that it actually solves a problem that they're having. Because the juicier that it is, the more aligned that it is, the more qualified of a prospect you're going to get. And one of the biggest struggles that consultants have is that a lot of the outreach for prospects is happening, but you are not really you don't have a system in the back end to see and assess who is, raising their hand, who is in need of what it is that you deliver, who is, checking out your website, who is on the fence, but maybe they haven't purchased. And by creating like a lead capture kind of process, it allows you to navigate through that and weed through that. So just to recap, you want to make sure that you have a system in place to increase awareness of your business. How are you going to get in front of the right prospects of clients? In my membership, one of the things that we talk about is creating a Hot 100 list. And it's basically a lead list of clients, people that you've worked with, people in your network, people in organizations that you are a part of, sorority or fraternity, brothers or sisters, etc., yada, yada, yada. But you create a list of these people and you document like, what is your connection to them? How could you be a benefit? And there are different ways that you can be, or that they can be a benefit. You might be a resource to one person, but someone might be someone who can connect you to the right person, or someone might be the kind of person who can answer a question or point you in the right direction, or they may be a decision maker. So in the Hot 100, we figure out like who are our hottest 100 leads that we have already in our network. And we basically start thinking about what that outreach could look like. So you want to make sure that you have a process for that and what that's going to look like for you in your business. Now, another thing that I see people really drop the ball on. Oh, also, if this is like resonating or making sense to you, please leave me a comment and let me know. And don't forget that if you stay until the end, I will give you, you'll be entered into a raffle to win a free VIP ticket to my upcoming 3-day leverage challenge. And in this challenge, we're going to basically help you transform your skill set into a consultant offer in just 3 days. So if that's of interest to you and you know you need help and support in that, stay until the end, and then you'll be entered into the raffle. Okay, so now that you have your lead capture form, what you want to do is you want to build trust and authority with these people. Now, one of the ways that you can do this, obviously, something that people talk about all the time is content. You can create LinkedIn content, you can create Instagram content, you can create Substack content, whatever, floats your boat. That is one of the ways that you can transform your thoughts, your ideas, your expertise, your testimonials and case studies into content that will resonate and land with your perfect prospects. But another way that you can do this would also be through your email list. So as I mentioned, when you're having people go and they're downloading that assessment, or they're downloading that one pager, or they're downloading that free guide, whatever that looks like for you, on the back end of that, you can send emails, to these people and basically get them to learn a little bit more about you, learn a little bit more about your framework, see the inner workings of the work that you do, the results that you deliver, the impact that you have, and you are able to build it gradually. So that way you are consistently building and nurturing that relationship with them. I think of email marketing and creating newsletters and things like that as like dating, right? Like you wouldn't meet someone tomorrow and then go and marry them the next day, right? You're going to have a period where you all are getting to know each other. And that's what the build trust and authority phase is. It's an opportunity for you to really position yourself as the expert, keep yourself relevant and top of mind, but it's also an opportunity for your prospects or your ideal clients to learn a little bit more about you and, determine if you are the right person to help them solve their problem. So you want to make sure that, you're not just like bombarding them with, content that will not connect or resonate with them. You want to leverage storytelling. You want to make sure that you maintain your professionalism, but also integrate your authenticity and your integrity of who you are into that content. Because what we think is what's going to separate us is, being the smartest in the room. But oftentimes, what actually separates you and what gets you hired is who you are, what you stand for. How can people connect with you? Those are the things that are going to be cemented into a decision maker's brain. There are plenty of people out there right now who teach personal branding and who could teach it about career elevation or how students can leverage personal branding in the digital era. There's so many people I think who could do that. But the thing that makes me different is my unique approach to it. Having been one of the students in the programs that I teach, having grown up in that kind of environment and understanding access to different tools and resources, understanding the type of jobs that we might have, being able to kind of like speak their language and have examples that, really will land with them, being excited about that because I remember being in their shoes, right? These kind of things are what allow me to really stand out, not just that I have a framework for personal branding, because hundreds of people have that, but what makes me different? So you want to make sure that you understand what makes you different, what makes you unique, and how can you incorporate that into your content? How can you leverage that to build trust and authority, right? You want to make sure that you know that, because those are the things that are going to help you to stand out. And a lot of times when you remove that from your content and you water it down, you actually end up sounding like everybody else on the internet, and that makes you very forgettable. You don't want that. You want to be top of mind. You want, when someone thinks about your expertise, you want to be the first name that comes up. So really really consider that. Consider what you want to be known for. Consider what your values are, how you want to incorporate them into your emails, into your content, etc. And then one strategy I would tell you is that if you are leveraging LinkedIn, do not miss the opportunity to use the LinkedIn newsletter. It's a really good opportunity, especially if that's where you're building your list of prospects. It's a really good opportunity for you to consistently deliver that content where your prospects are and get their attention. The way that LinkedIn has created this feature is very useful for you if LinkedIn is your primary lead generation and prospecting platform. So if you're not using that, you definitely should. And then my last point in building your simple sales funnel as a consultant is going to be conversion. Make the offer and close the sale, right? So you've attracted them, you've sent them to this lead capture, you've nurtured them, you've told them your story, you've highlighted what makes you different and unique, your framework, all these things. So the very last thing that's left for you to do is to make the offer. Now, I personally, in my consulting business, like to make the offer on the call. I like to talk to my prospects because I know that with federally funded programs, there's a lot that goes into making an investment such as mine. And so I want to make sure that any questions that they may have, any considerations that they may have for how their pool of students need to be served, that we're able to answer that and kind of get that out of the way on the call. I think that when it comes to consulting, going back and forth via email and things like that, it can get a little wonky. So you have to figure out for you what your process is going to look like. Depending on the type of decision makers that you are targeting, this process can look different. So you might, like myself, prefer consultation calls, or you might prefer to just pitch your services via email. You might prefer to pitch your services via LinkedIn. Whatever that strategy looks like for you, you want to understand what your buyer's journey is, and you want to have a plan in place to optimize that buyer's journey based on what you see working. So as an example, I noticed that for me, my buyer's journey is much more it converts higher when I connect with the person that I'm prospecting for on LinkedIn and then message them about hopping on a call. And then we hop on a call and we get to have this conversation. And then I follow up with them via email. And that works really well for me. They get to see me, they get to see my personality, I get to see them. We get to have a conversation about their students and where they are now, what kind of programming they already have in place, etc. And then I get to build on that. So you want to understand what that process is going to look like for you, because it's not always going to be like rinse and repeat, right? You may need to get information from the people that you're prospecting in order to kind of tailor your pitch or your offer to them in a way that makes sense, right? So you want to know what that looks like for you. So you might try and start with inviting them to a strategy call or inviting them to a consultation, and then using that to refine your process before you begin to automate it. One of the mistakes that I see a lot of people make is that they automate their process before they understand or see that the process works. And that doesn't make sense. You definitely don't want to do that. Before you automate it, you want to make sure that you're getting the results and you are having the success that you are looking for. When you see that what you are doing time and time again is working, at that point, then you would consider automating, but not a second before. Because if you are trying to automate something that doesn't work, that is not going to fare out well for you. Okay. So you just want to understand what that process and what those steps are going to be for moving your prospects into being clients. What is that going to look like for you? And you want to make sure you have a documented process so that way you can replicate it time and time again. So, hey, Jamar, that is all that I have. So to recap, your simple sales funnel for getting clients in your consulting business is going to be increasing your awareness, driving those prospects to a lead capture form that's going to be some type of resource or lead magnet connected to the problem that they are struggling with. And then at that point, you want to make sure that you are nurturing them, you're strengthening the relationship that you have with them, you're introducing them to really who you are, your unique framework, what makes you different, special, etc. And then you want to convert them by closing the sale. So these are the 4 steps that I want you to take. If you have any questions, feel free to peruse my YouTube channel. I share videos about consulting and building a consulting business every week. But you can also grab my free pivot plan linked in the comments. This plan will help you to start to begin the transition to make the pivot into consulting if that's something that you are already on the fence about. Now, here is for the fun. If you are considering building a consulting offer and you want a free VIP ticket to attend the Leverage 3-day conference starting on September 2nd, all you have to do is comment raffle in the comments. I will enter your name to win. And then if you are the winner, I will send you the details about grabbing your ticket. So if that's something that you're interested in, make sure you comment raffle right now. I know that there are a number of you who are on the live. So there you go. That ticket would normally be $147. But if you win, you would get it for free. Again, I'm so glad that y'all saw me here today. I hope that you'll meet me here next Monday. And also hit subscribe and like on this video. It really helps me out. Otherwise, I hope that y'all have a good day. Bye.